Let's talk about the tariffs, both from what Trump has been doing. All the economists got it wrong, of course, no surprises there. Do you remember all that kind of, oh, it's going to be world recession, it's going to be this, it's going to be a disaster, it's isolationist, all the top conservative...
Share market will crash.
All the top conservative
inflation.
commentators.
Recession, depression.
Yes. He's an isolationist, protectionism. Oh.
America's going to lose out, and we've just seen him strike the biggest trade deal thus far. Japan was pretty huge, but the EU deal, even the Trump deranged crowd had to acknowledge what an enormous win that was for Trump. The deal he secured there for America, astonishing on so many levels. And already in 2025, they've had $150 billion in tariff revenue come in. Yeah. Thus far, hasn't been inflationary. The share market is at a record pace. So it's not... The economists have really been quite embarrassed here. Not every single economist, but the overwhelming majority that the media go to got this so horrifically wrong, and the expert class has had another blow.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
You know, I mean, the thing that people are finally starting to wake up to is what the whole point of what Trump is trying to do here is. You know, like since World War II and all the way through the Reagan era and beyond, we had this kind of assumption that free trade was good in and of itself, just simply for its own sake. And, like, on one level, yeah, free trade is good, but not at the expense of an unbalanced trading order where a company like China comes in, you know, steals IP, uses incredibly cheap and in some cases slave labor, manipulates its own currency, manipulates markets, dumps its own products, and winds up putting countries like the United States and Australia into this position where all of their industry goes overseas, all of the, you know, their national security of being able to make their own steel goes overseas, all of these sort of things, and their currencies wind up out of balance. So he's rebalancing the market. This is what it's about. This is actually really healthy. Now, I'm all in favor of free trade between like nations, but when you've got a country like China, and this whole strategy is ultimately about, and you can see, Rita,
even the EU.
But the way he's also done this here is to say, we need money to pay off this deficit, and this money is going to that deficit. They still have to cut spending, but this is the point. Otherwise, he knew that, you know, America was headed for a cliff of debt, and this is the only way that they can turn around from that.
I think it goes beyond that. I think it's not just free trade is fine as long as both nations are free and they're not imposing tariffs. No. You protect your own industries, you protect your own workers. As the President of the United States with an America First agenda, that is your number one priority. And if that means Australia or the UK or some other ally gets a lesser deal, that's what you do. And Trump doesn't just use this to bring back manufacturing. He's actually doing it to exercise foreign policy as well, because we saw this week the deal with India. We know the President has got very good relationships with Prime Minister Modi in India. He loves India. But India got a dud deal because they're buying so much from Russia. They're getting arms from Russia. They're getting energy, I think, also from Russia. So they were punished for that reliance on Russia. So, again, it's a very clever way of not just bolstering your homegrown manufacturing, but it's also to put pressure on countries to behave the way you want them to, whether that's distancing yourself from Russia or China or some other
Well, what's fascinating for me is that we got the 10%, which is the lowest tariffs, which is great, and the Albanese government and Don Farrell are running around saying, we did a great job because we kept a really low profile. Yeah, they're correct. They did nothing. In fact, Donald Trump didn't even know who they were or anything about them. So my advice to the Albanese government, there is a good lesson here. Everything you don't touch and don't get involved in is a success. Everything you actually touch and get involved in is an absolute disaster. So pursue this strategy of just stay away from anything, don't touch anything, don't do anything with our economy, don't do anything with our industry, don't do anything with our net zero. Just walk away and do nothing, and it will all be as successful as the 10% Trump tariffs. But the danger here for Australia is that as soon as we do come onto the radar around December 27th, when all our anti-free speech laws kick in, as you were suggesting earlier, James, the Americans will be looking at us and looking at how we are blocking access to YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all these major American platforms, and the wrath of the Americans will come down and it will see those tariffs go up, and it'll be the fault of the Albanese government and the coalition.
There's an earlier deadline too as well, September, the UN General Assembly, when there's going to be a very big push on to recognize Palestine, right? And we know that all these other countries want to do this. We know that Albanese wants to do it. We know that Penny Wong is absolutely chomping at the bit to recognize Palestine. If they sign up with that, that's another black.
What if they abstain? Because they have, in the past, abstained for votes where we would have supported Israel and America. So there's a danger they'll do that as well. That they won't vote, but they'll abstain. I think we're in a difficult position here because Trump also wants to bring pharmaceutical manufacturing back to the US. He sees that as a weakness. We export more than $2 billion a year in pharmaceuticals to the US. So that's going to hurt us because that tariff is going to be a great deal more than 10% if that's imposed.